Hey everybody, welcome to Take a Break with James and Jake, the podcast where we hit pause on the chaos of life, grab a cup of coffee, and dive into real conversations about faith, life, and everything in between. Hello, and welcome to Taking a Break with James and Jake. Today we're going to be talking about not falling into traps that we have in ministry, or in leadership in general. We'll hopefully be touching on things that like some main points that not only we have dealt with, but we've seen other people deal with as well. So I hope you enjoy this episode.
Okay, so episode 3 now, getting into the swing of it. Last episode we talked about like vulnerability and the Superman effect. You can't do it all, and that kind of got James and I thinking. The next logical continuation seems to be like more of those kind of traps. And so we've got a small list we're going to go through and talk about it. Just probably go back and forth, whatever one of us wants to say. And so the first one that we thought of is that the trap that pastors can't hurt. And so, this is some reason there's this idea that a pastor is vulnerable or shielded from, not vulnerable, but shielded from being able to be hurt, right? Because apparently as a pastor, you're not a real human, kind of. Like it's like seeing your teacher, when you're a kid, you see your teacher outside of school, like at a restaurant or something like that. And you're like, oh, you're not supposed to be real. And so when there's a pastor that says, yeah, I am hurting from this, you're like, wait a minute, you're my pastor. You're supposed to be like, immune from that. What do you mean you're hurting? And that can be a lot of different things, right? Like, we're all people. That can be the loss of a family member or of a friend or a loved one in any way. It can be just a hard time. We all have our low moments, our low weeks, where not everything is, sunshine and rainbows. But at the same time, like we hurt because we're people, obviously, and there's a lot of things going on around the world that just can make us hurt. And so that's one of the traps, is that it feels like we're not allowed to show that we're hurting. And we talked about that in the last episode a little bit about when it came to vulnerability, but it was just something that as we were talking about it, sounded like some more needed to be said, I guess. Is that the way you would kind of say it, James?
Yeah, there's a lot of more details that we can go into about pastoral hurt. Like, I mean, we have a couple situations that have happened recently where there are things that can be shared with other people and things that can't be when it comes to leadership. It's like myself and our pastoral staff, we have conversations about a couple of issues that we're dealing with right now. And but it's not general knowledge to the congregation. Because it's not only affecting the church as a whole without the church realizing it, but it's also affecting the emotional, physical, and mental aspects of the leadership. And that's where it's good to have a mentor. Like I always talk about having a mentor and how I have a few, and it's like we talk to each other quite frequently, and so just having someone to talk to share the hurts and to not get confirmation that you're right, because you're not always right, but to realize that it's okay to hurt and to take time to grieve whatever you're dealing with. Um, and and that leads into the next part where it's like you don't have to heal quickly. For everybody heals differently. Everybody processes things differently. Like it took me 3 years to get over my last workplace. It took me a little while to just realize that, it's okay to process those feelings, and I don't have to heal quickly. It's just like with the loss of a loved one. We have grief share. There's a lot of churches that have grief share. Sometimes you only need one grief share session. Sometimes you need two or three, or but everybody heals differently, and the lie of having to heal quickly is again playing into the Superman aspect. Is you have to have it all together, and if you don't have it all together, then why are you a leader? Why are you a pastor? Kind of thing.
Right, and it comes to that point of, you know, like you said, it took several years for you to get over and heal from your last church, and for me, it was the same way. We've shared our stories. If this is somehow the first episode you're listening to, go back and listen to the first episode. James and I both talked about our experience with church hurt and burnout. Um, but at the same time, like it, it's the same thing as like that first one. Like if we are seen as like being able to hurt, like people will understand, yeah, we'd hurt. It's almost like we're supposed to be able to just be able to move on from that super quick because we're super Christians, and it's not how it works. Um, it just there are things that affect us. Some things, yeah, sure, you can kind of move on quickly. If it's like criticism that you're like, okay, sure, maybe that was valid, maybe it wasn't, and you can just kind of brush it off. But other times there's like, hey, I this is something that's affecting me. Like I need to take time. And for my last stretch, it took 2 years for me to really be able to move forward and fully heal from that. And I know we have this listed a little bit lower, but I'm going to jump to it because it feels like it's naturally coming. A a good way to heal from that is with counseling, and or if you're dealing with depression and you need to be medicated for that. James and I are both like proponents of being like, hey, if there's something that you are really going through, like it's a chemical imbalance in your brain and you need medication, take medication. Like get counseling, talk to somebody, because that's another big old snafu. It seems like not allowed to be able to be on medication to actually help us be fully healthy, not be able to, you know, it's for some reason not okay to talk to somebody about the things we are hurting through and going through. And I know that when I've dealt with not medication, but depression in the past, I've gone to counseling. It's just been for kind of months at a time, because it was just something I was going through. I didn't necessarily need medication, but I did talk to people, like James alluded to. We talked to each other. Literally before we started recording this episode, we were trying to remember what we said we were going to talk about, and I had to search through like 4 days of texts because we were talking about baseball and wanted to go see games and stuff like that. And so, like, being able to talk to somebody, even if it's just a friend, but I highly recommend if you need counseling, go to counseling. Like it's okay. In fact, I think more pastors should say, "Hey, I go to counseling because there's a lot going on in my life. I'm speaking the word of God to people. Things are happening around me that are affecting me. I need somebody to talk to about it."
Yeah, and also there are like a big issue too with a lot of pastors I know can be the financial aspect of things. Um And there are um, places and organizations that can help you for low to no cost. Um, like Standing Stone, I believe is one.
Mhm.
And like just being able to go online and search, or even your own denomination, if you're a part of a denomination, um, there are certain benefits. Like I'm in the Wesleyan denomination, and the benefits that we get, like our district superintendent, our head guy for our area, mentioned that we don't necessarily have to worry about the financial aspect, because this is something that happened recently, is that my family is currently going through some stuff, and he said, don't worry about the financial aspect, the district can pay for it, the district will help. And just being able to know that people have your back, and that there are organizations out there and denominations out there that will help you, is just another benefit. um there's uh there's a guy that I talked to. We had a pastor meeting for a retreat that we're planning, and this guy, this pastor friend of mine, has some students that want to start a Christian club in their school, like an FCA, or a Youth Alive, and so he was talking about it, and all this stuff started happening with the students. They got super busy. They just had all these roadblocks in the way, and they were having a meeting with their coordinator, and the pastor said, you know, there are things that Satan's bringing up from 27 years ago of ministry that he's had to deal with, and knowing that it's okay to talk about that, and you have a group of people to listen to you, um it's just so beneficial, not only to um you personally, but to your ministry as well. Because I mean, again, it goes back to healing quickly. That pastor is 27 years, it's but it hasn't been brought to the forefront of his mind until now. So, like, there are some things that'll happen, and it's okay to seek out counseling and get medicated.
Yeah. And I mean, it it's weird that is such a big stigma. Like it's almost as if saying that. So something right now that with my students I'm going through, it's a book called Nine Common Lies That Christians Believe by Shane Pruitt. Very good if you have not read that. It's awesome. But one of the first chapter is the lie is that God will never give me more than I can handle. That is straight up a lie. Because if you're in ministry, you know at any point a situation has come up to you, has been made aware to you, and you're like, holy cow, how am I supposed to get through that? Like it's just a situation, whether it's someone in your church, whether it's someone in your family, it's heavy, right? There's literally no way you can on your own get through that situation. And so he talks about the whole point is the lie is trying to do it on our own. The truth is God's going to give you more than you can handle, but he'll never give you more than he can handle through you. That's the whole point, right? Is us leaning on God and giving everything up to him and saying, God, I can't deal with this on my own. I can't do this on my own. You are going to have to help me, guide me through it, and lead me. That's the whole point. And for some reason, as a pastor, we're not allowed to do that sometimes. It seems like by some people, they're like, oh no, you're supposed to be able to just be able to talk to God and get through it on your own. No, 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 no. That's a lie. So please go to counseling if you need it. And if you need to take meds, take meds. It's okay. Like, do the things that are going to get you right to be able to lead where God has you over your ministry, in your ministry, your family, whatever it is. Like, if you need to do it, do it. But the thing is too, is that like, as we continue to go on and on and on, sometimes it feels like, you know, it's unending. There is no break because, it just feels like we finished the Thanksgiving and Christmas rush, and then now Easter's coming. The guy, shout out Chris, who edits our podcast. He's also helping in a ministry at his church with audio and video stuff, and he's like, "Oh, Easter's 4 weeks away," and it made James and I both go, we just finished. It seems like getting through Christmas and now Easter's here. And then, if you're in student ministry, summer's going to be here. You got camp, you got VBS, you got other things going on. Like, it's never ending. So sometimes it feels like we're not allowed to take a break. And sometimes that's what people in the church expect us, is to not be able to take a break. But truthfully, you know, we're supposed to. um, I don't know anybody who can go a full year without taking off at least a week, you know, because you just kind of need it sometimes, whether it's a Sunday or a Wednesday, but a break from your weekly activity that you help lead in or over is good. Like, we're supposed to rest. God rested after making the world, right? Like, he himself saw creation on the seventh day and called it very good and rested and called it Sabbath and made it holy, and they commanded his people in Israel to do the same.
Yeah, and I preached on that a few months back, and about the importance of taking a break and having a Sabbath. And ministry leaders are the worst at doing this. Like, you can preach it all you want, but you got to practice what you preach sometimes. And sometimes that is just turning off the phone and going away for the day, having a date night with your significant other if you have one, doing things that you're passionate about, but also being able to take time and be in prayer and devotional reading as well. Um, and sometimes, like, there's that stigma, like, the pastor only works on Sunday, right? Or Wednesday or whatever. They only work one day a week, but that's just another trap that we fall into, is that, okay, we just make fun of it, make it a lighthearted joke, but really there's times where there's absolutely no break in between anything. You can be going through a tough situation at your church, or your job if you're bivocational, and just continue to just burn out because you're not able to take that day off. And that's where you have to talk to your leadership about taking a day off. And if you have a leadership that doesn't allow that, then, man, it's something that you need to pray about. Um, and that's one of the big things, is that it's okay to take a break. It's okay to have a day off. You don't have to feel guilty by not doing something. Because that's another trap, is that you fall into that guilt of, I should be doing something right now. Like, I should send a message to the student. I should be creating a slideshow for an event that's coming up. But really, it's okay to just take a break. Hence the name of the podcast, or taking a break.
Right. Yeah. And too, that goes throughout the year, but I think there's also a time in the week. I think that's one thing that, James, I don't know about you, but I can be really bad at is trying to find a break during my week. Even if it's just like, just because throughout the week, and different pastors have different roles and things like that. But I'm a part-time youth pastor, and when I'm not up at the church or I'm not in my apartment resting, I am also a bus driver. for one of the local school districts. And so I wake up super early every morning, go drive a bus. And then 2 days a week, I go to the church directly after that, work on church stuff, and then go back in the afternoon, drive the bus again. And then on Wednesdays, I go back and do church that night. So Wednesdays are like really long. I feel like I have no time to rest. And so I like tonight is a great example. Some friends and I are gonna go meet up and hang out, eat some pizza, play some games, and just relax, have a fun time together. Like that's rest. That's Sabbath. I'm doing something, right? But it is I'm not doing anything ministry related. Yeah, it's people I go to church with and they're friends, but and we might talk about church stuff there, but they know, like I've told them, like I sometimes I just need like a separation. I just need to be able to be Jake, the person, not Jake the pastor. And they know that. They're pretty good at it. But we have to find time not just throughout the year, but throughout the week too, because if we aren't careful, we will not find the time.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like you just mentioned about being the pastor, Pastor Jake. It's one of those things too where you have to surround yourself with people that don't consider you their pastor, because then it takes away that hat. Like you get to hang out with people that don't consider you the pastor. I go and play basketball with a different church every Friday generally, and they make fun of me a little bit. They call me Pastor James and stuff like that when I because I bring my own basketball and I put my name on there and I put pastor so people don't steal it. So I've had a ball stolen before. So but yeah, just being able to take off that pastor hat and be able to actually be like Jake or James. I'm like it's it's really nice to have that feeling. Um and and leading into our next point here is talking about roles and calling. Um Again, another trap is falling into that idea that your role can't change. There's a saying that goes around that youth ministry is just a stepping stone to be a lead pastor. Like that's not always the case. I've known people that have been in youth ministry for 30 years and because that's where God called them. And sometimes it's hard to figure out if that's what God is calling you to, if your role is supposed to change, if your calling is changing. Because guess what? God can use you in more ways than just a pastoral role. And
What?
it's
No.
crazy. And it's one of those things too where like like with myself, I didn't realize like where God was leading me. I'm a youth pastor full time, but I also officiate soccer and basketball. And I love officiating. It's so much fun. I get harassed, um, belittled. Oh, it's just like church. No. Um, but no. On a real note though, like being able to do that, I like that's a passion of mine. Being able to see improvements in students' lives when it comes to sports, like seeing them improve on the court or on the field, um, watching them grow up is really cool. And not to mention the witness that I have through not only the players, but the my officials as well. I get to go to a game and like there's one team in particular that has a couple players that wear the Jesus One shirts from SCA. And so, I make it a thing where I go up to them and say, "Hey, I really like your shirt," and keep representing. And and like that's always a passion of mine. And working with students, youth ministry. But like I had jury duty for 9 weeks and I was like, wow, this is fun. It was not fun. Um, but during that time, I felt a tug on my spirit that God was trying to lead me to something else as well. Not necessarily get rid of youth ministry altogether, but to add to it. And I'm like, I didn't know what. I didn't know what to pray. I didn't know anything. And Romans 8:26 says, in the same way the Spirit helps us in our weakness, we do not know what we ought to pray for. But the Spirit Himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. So I didn't know what in the world God was trying to lead me to. And yet the Holy Spirit led me to figuring that out. And now I'm going back to school and going back for clinical and school counseling. Because one thing I noticed while officiating is that I have students from other schools that I've never talked to, but they find me approachable and they come up to me and then they'll start talking to me out of nowhere. I had a girl in a school that's about 40 minutes away from me ask me where my twin was, which I'm not a twin, but there's a guy in the official league that looks identical to me, has the same name, but she's like, "How's your twin?" And then at halftime, she says, "Good job out there, James." I'm like, "How do you know my name?" And it's like you have students being like realizing that you're easy to talk to, and that's leading me toward a school counseling position where they can come up to me and then I can use that as an avenue in a legal way because schools are difficult, but and use it as an avenue to bring them to maybe youth group and then eventually to Christ through using that aspect of working in a school. I have more impact on students' lives. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like I know for me, it's roles specifically. Like I grew up, I was like my dad was like on the media team. And so in a lot of the times on Sunday morning I'd be in the booth with him uh while he did the slides and the sound. And then eventually like he taught me how to do slides. And then like I learned how to do the soundboard. And then I then wanted to be on stage, not just to be on stage because I'm not like a hey, look at me person, but because I love music. And so I learned how to play bass guitar. And then that led to me learning to play acoustic guitar and sing because it was a role in something that was needed in a student ministry where I was serving. And then it was hey, I went to a different church and it was, hey, we see that you have some ministry experience leading in worship. Would you want to do that on Sundays? Because we don't have anyone now. I was like, sure. So like my roles have always changed. Student ministry has always been there, but it's almost like every church I've been to, it's like, hey, we have this role that not just because I'm a young youth pastor, but like something you said you've been gifted in or something you like enjoy doing. Would you want to do that? And that can change wholly from like, I know guys that truly like they felt like being at one point they felt called to student ministry and then they felt that God was calling them to be a teaching pastor or missions pastor or senior pastor. Like they truly felt that. They didn't just use it as a stepping stone. So if God's calling you, like genuinely calling you to a different role, listen to God, you know? And sometimes that can come in the form of not just a different role, but maybe a different church. And, that can be really, really, really hard because sometimes we feel like once we get hired at a church we love, that we just want to stay there. And so maybe we're not looking for other opportunities anywhere, but something just kind of falls into our lap. And I know I've seen, we've mentioned before that we're both part of several youth pastor groups online. And it seems like every few weeks there's someone that goes, hey, I'm stepping into a new role. How have you transitioned well? I just finished my last night tonight, or I'm about to have my last night tonight. I just read one of those this past week. That said, as a guy saying, tonight's my last night. Here's what I preached on. Here's what I told the students. If you would be praying for me and my family, and of course, like it, it seems like sometimes this isn't even necessarily pressure from the church itself, right? It's more maybe pressure from ourselves that if we're somewhere we enjoy, then why would God call us somewhere else? You know? but we don't know God's intention. Maybe there's that new place is gonna be just as good of a fit, if not even better than we are already at. Maybe there's another role or something that he has specifically suited you for that church. Maybe you have like, I know for me, I have a heart for serving in the community, and the church I'm at right now. It's one of the big things we do. We serve our community. And even right now too, like I just did a Disciple Now this past weekend, and we partnered with for our mission project on Saturday. We partnered with a local nonprofit that my church already partners with, and I said, hey, we would love to come help you with another along with another church in any capacity. Just help, if it's clean your building, we'll clean the building. We'll wipe clean windows, whatever. And they found some stuff for us to do. And at the end of it, I talked to one of the ladies that works there, and I said, hey, I would love to volunteer here in just some form or fashion. And she and I talked for like 20 minutes about like, hey, here's our volunteer areas. Like, go on our website. And she even said, I'll email you something specifically that I think you'd be great for, that we need actually pastors to do. And so I've been talking to her about that. I've been looking at it. Our roles change, and sometimes that means going to a different church. Maybe it's the same role. Maybe it's just a different church, a new place. And, a lot of the times when something like that comes up, I think of Jonah. God calls Jonah to go and spread his word to people, and Jonah runs. And what happens to Jonah? He gets caught in a storm with all the other people on the boat. They throw him off. He gets eaten by a giant fish and then spat up on the shores of where he was supposed to go anyway. It's in Nineveh. And so then what does he do? He goes and preaches God's word, and the people change, and Jonah gets mad. It's really weird, the story of Jonah. But at the same time, like, it's a big, are you going to listen to God's call in your life, or are you not?
Yeah, and that's the cool part about things too, is that like eventually Jonah listens. Um it may have not been the as easy as he wanted it to be. But we make things so difficult on ourselves sometimes when it comes to transitioning to something. And like the experience that I'm in right now is that I can see I didn't want to 3 years ago. I didn't want to change jobs. But like now that I'm here, I look back and I'm like, wow, I can kind of see where God's using that experience to guide me in the future. And it's really weird to see that now. You told me 2 years ago, I wouldn't have seen it. But now, looking back, it was all in preparation for what can be better. Doesn't mean it'll be easy, but it can be better. And if God is leading you to it, then I think He knows best. I think we can really mess things up when we don't listen, even if it's a good thing. And they also can be too much of a good thing as well. Um, I've read that a couple times that even if you're doing a lot, too much of a good thing is can be a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah, goes back to rest. We have to rest. Especially if we're leading in ministry, right? We don't want to not just tire ourselves out, but like run ourselves empty. You know, like it too much of a good thing can be so good that you're doing so much good other places, but that means that you're ignoring your duty and your opportunity somewhere else. And if I'm single, so I can't necessarily fully speak into that of when it comes to like how it affects your family. But I know just from seeing it in my friends' lives and other pastors I've talked to about how they've talked about how sometimes they just run themselves uh, rampant, doing so many things that are great and that, like, of course, are commanded by God to do. Like, their life suffers in some way. And that's not good, and that's why rest is important. And being able to say no, which is something we should talk about at some point.
And if you think about it too, think of it from a surgeon standpoint. Do you want to have a big open heart surgery with a surgeon that hasn't taken rest? Um, I would not want to. Uh, which I know they work out like hours. They work 12-hour shifts. They get tired, but they have to rest because if they don't rest, then they're mentally and physically unable to do the best to their ability with the job that they're currently at. And the same thing goes with ministry. If you are not resting and you don't take that time, then you're mentally and emotionally and spiritually not there as well as you could be when you rest. And that's the crazy thing is that we don't think about the implications of our actions when it comes to not resting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say that's pretty good. Uh, well, I don't know. I don't know what else we gotta say. You got anything else, James?
No, I think it's a shorter episode this time.
A little bit shorter, which it's like gonna be 35 minutes. It's not much shorter, but just a little bit. So if you're listening to this, thank you so much. This is something that, as we've talked about as we were doing it, James and I are just passionate about wanting to help, pastors specifically, but we also know that there might be people listening to this that you're not a pastor. Maybe you just help kind of volunteer in ministry, or maybe you don't. Maybe you just go to church somewhere. All of that to say, we would love your feedback. So leave a comment and drop us an email. It should be in the description somewhere.
Subscribe on
But-
YouTube.
Subscribe on YouTube. Yeah, we just put up on YouTube. It's not a video or anything. It's just audio, but can look at our cool picture that James's wife made the entire time. Or we'll listen to it while washing the dishes or something. But yeah, give us any comments you have. Give us some feedback. And yeah, I guess we'll catch you next time.
That was good.
Bye.